Rajeev Amarasuriya. He's the former secretary of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. Rajeev, welcome to this news hour. Thanks for joining us. Now, with all of this happening, legal terms, when we look at President Rajapaksa leaving the country, I mean, many protesters have actually called for him and his family to be held to account for what's happened in Sri Lanka, not just now, but over the last 20 years. Can he be held to account? Can he even be prosecuted without actually being in the country? Effectively, he's in exile, it seems.
As long as he had the immunity, there was an issue in prosecuting the incumbent president. But if this resignation takes effect and if it is accepted by the speaker, he has, as Iswaran mentioned, he's looking into the legality of it. Once the immunity goes out, yes, he can be prosecuted. Of course, the criminal process would have to be put in motion. And certainly, even if he's outside the country, summons can be served. And if he doesn't appear, then ex parte, the matter could continue. So that process will have to take effect. But I think at this juncture, there is this transition of power. There is a vacuum. There is a lot of fluidity. It's fluid, and one needs to move to the next status quo of governance, which hopefully will happen in the next week.
And as you mentioned, there is this political vacuum in Sri Lanka. It's also coupled with a growing economic crisis. The military has been given the power to try and bring the protests under control, to try and calm the situation. Do you expect the army then to possibly get more politically involved?
The army had been brought in because of the problems we had on the streets. The army was brought in previously as well. I don't see the matter escalating because what the protesters initially wanted was the resignation of Gotabaya Rajapaksa as the president. He spoke to the nation. He came out and said that he would resign on the 13th. The problem was that on the 13th, the day came and went, and the resignation did not take effect. It appears that Mr. Rajapaksa was looking at moving into a safer location, and that is why the letter did not come yesterday. So now that the letter has come today, that is the main demand. Certainly there are other demands of the protesters now which have arisen thereafter. The main demand of the protesters has now been achieved. Of course, they would want to see a smooth transition. They would want to see a legitimate government in place. And the Constitution, of course, provides for that process. Once the speaker takes cognizance of the resignation, he has said that he is looking at the legality of it. But once, if he does accept that it is a valid resignation, then within 3 days, he needs to call for the parliament must convene. He must announce it to the parliament, and thereafter the process begins to nominate the contenders for the post of president, and the election must be conducted. Of course, until then, in terms of the constitution, the prime minister would act in the position of president.
Rajeev, what measures do you believe are needed right now to restore order and stability in Sri Lanka and to try and get the country out of this economic crisis?
Yeah, so there are two issues. Of course, the governance aspect. One would require a legitimate process which results in a legitimate government, president in place. The constitution has a process in place. There are various demands. There's opposition to the incumbent prime minister. At the moment, so one will have to see the next couple of days how it pans out. But I think the bigger issue is the economic recovery. The last couple of weeks, even though there were discussions with the IMF, the process was ongoing. But obviously, with so much happening on the ground, I don't think any of the leaders were in a position to give their fullest effort towards that process. So hopefully, if there is a proper process next week, the opposition also is coming out, and they will probably come out with a candidate for president. Maybe for prime minister also, so that there is an arrangement where there's a president and a prime minister, because one needs to form the numbers in parliament. One needs a majority in parliament to elect the next president. And as it is divided, since the ruling party does have a majority, there will be arrangements, coalitions in place. So once that takes effect, hopefully then the protesters, the people, would then accept what comes out of that process. And then, of course, the bigger issue would be to then look at the economic recovery of this country.
Rajeev Amarasuriya, really appreciate your analysis on this. Thank you so much.